Speaker of the House, Mike Moyle, you are back.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not dead yet.
Oh my God. God bless you, sir. Listen, you and I have been trying to
talk about that stuff on air, can't we?
Just be good. Just be good.
All right,
just
be good.
know there has something to do with
No
lemon
farm
tree.
language. We're all good.
Yeah, we're good. Listen, you and I got connected last year, right before the primary, because there was this mass push to, like, people had stacks of flyers like over like a foot high,
Yeah, like 6 a day sometimes.
and
Crazy.
what's striking to me is, again, you and I were kind of wrestling with the same thing, which is like, how do we communicate with Idaho, right? Because so many, for instance, in Stars almost doubled in population in the last 4 years.
Yep.
And because of that, people come in and they don't orient them. They haven't had an opportunity to orient themselves, sufficiently, or at least not at that point.
Yep.
And that leaves this big question mark of like, what's Idaho? Who's Mike Moyle? Who are these people? And man, those people with the flyers, they love to answer that question. So talk to me about this. Like, people always talk about wanting to get money out of politics and wanting to stop outside influence. And then they like go get their mail and they look at the flyers like, guys, this is not reality at all.
No, and you can't, they tell you the truth or anything else. And you saw that in the last primary and general election too, with the Prop 1. This was a bunch of garbage. Stuff was not always truthful. A lot of them was flat out lies or half lies, trying to skew people. And you got all these new folks moving in that don't know any better, right? The people move here because we have the best state in the nation, hands down. We have the best. That's why they're here. And the first thing, they come here and they think we're doing something wrong. Hey, it wasn't broke before you got here. Don't try to fix it, right? And so these out-of-state guys keep sending money in, trying to skew. And it's about control, I think, a lot of it. I think they want to control everybody. Idaho's not a state where we like to be controlled by somebody who lives in Texas or Colorado or Virginia.
The North Carolina Fondue King. Don't forget him.
I can't forget him. He didn't even know what the hell he'd spend his money
on. Yeah, right.
on.
He didn't even know who Chuck Winder was. When the Phil McGrain called him, he was like, I don't know, like whatever. We're just writing checks to people. If you're listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other audio-only platform, please jump down and give it a quick follow and a review. The Ranch Podcast is the only podcast in the state of Idaho that has access to this many Idaho leaders, and your support is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, we just want to get rid. We want to fix the world. We don't even know what the hell we're fixing. With that Citizens United ruling, they get to play that game, and you'll see some bills here in Idaho in the next week or two where we start trying to rein that in. We've got to rein in where the money's coming from. I can't stop it, but at least we can come in where it's coming from. You're seeing flyers set right now. There's no reporting on all that stuff. That ought to be reported. They're lobbying. We need to figure out who's. We can't always find out who they get the money from because they worm it, right? They move it from one pack to another. But at least we can find out what they're spending on, when they're spending it, and who's getting spent on them. But we also, in my opinion, this is Idaho, right? We don't like people that aren't always truthful, right? And there's got to be a way, and you saw it with Julianne Young's race, where they totally lied about her. I mean, it wasn't even a fib. I mean, it was an all-out lie. There's got to be a way to get at that. One of the things you saw here recently with Donald Trump is they're all writing him checks now, right? ABC wrote him a $15 million check the other way. Yeah.
Oh,
so
my God.
I think it's because, they got caught lying about him, right?
Yeah.
He started suing them. There's a case that's called the New York Times versus Sullivan. And in that case, the court ruled if you're an elected official that you fall under a different standard, that I can lie about you. And I don't think that's the case, right? The First Amendment is freedom of speech, but not freedom to make crap up and
defamation and slander.
Well, yeah, when you were in school, first thing you learned is you can't go in a crowded room and let a fire because somebody's going to get hurt. We've got to get back to where, hey, we can have an honest disagreement. You and I probably don't agree on everything, and we can have that disagreement, and we can walk out of here and be friends. But we got to get away from this out-of-state money coming in here lying about people, and they don't want to walk out and be friends. They want to walk out and bury you in a hole, and their goal is not good for Idaho. These guys aren't coming into Idaho to make Idaho better. If you think they are, you're mistaken.
Yeah, listen, I couldn't agree with you more. Plus, I think there's a vested interest by other states to portray Idaho as a dysfunctional kind of, not pragmatic, not livable, just like a hotbed for insanity. And you see that from other states that are losing a lot of populations here. They don't want people to move here. They don't want to lose their hiring individuals. They're like, no, don't go there. It's the devil.
Yeah, but once they come here, they stay.
Yeah, of course they do.
They don't want to leave. They come here and goes, hey,
those guys are full of crap.
Exactly, they're full of crap. And then the worst part is they bring all the friends too, which is so that's why we see all the growth, right? We were talking about homeowners associations earlier. That ties into that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I have appreciation for that. Question for you. Prop 1 was an interesting case study, in my opinion, because you did have so much money getting spent on Prop 1, right? Like that's very, very clear. But it seemed that the ballot initiative system functioned appropriately, at least in that we got a result that was representative of what people wanted. Now, how we got there is up to how, like, I don't understand campaigns and that stuff, but it's not like 75% of people didn't want it, but the thing passed. It's like, no. It like the citizens were heard. This was their position. It wasn't even close. Like, okay, so it worked.
Well, it did. And in Prop 1 is a prime example of people saying things that weren't true, right? Every one of their advertisements said this opens the primary. I'll give you a clue. Didn't open the primary. Created a jungle primary, right? They were lied to constantly. 5.5, millions of dollars from out of state again, spent trying to skew Idaho in a certain direction. And thank goodness the voters saw through it, right? It did work. The voters saw through it. It was soundly defeated, which was a good thing. But what should concern you is, why do we let out of state people and out of state money come in here and direct what those initiatives are and what we should think and do, and try in that case to control our elections? Now, the people saw through it. But my concern is it's not going to get any better, that they're going to keep trying to do this because Idaho's a cheap state to spend lots of money here.
Okay, let me ask you something. Like, real question. Whoa, watch out. Okay, I hear what you're saying about out-of-state money with things like that. But we have like out-of-state lobbyists, like Senator Cook. He ran the bill last year that was trying to prevent minors from having access to technology, at least in the initial purchase, consumer tech that was switched on to be like an adult mode. It had to be switched to kid mode. We allow lobbyists from across the country and world to come in and testify and persuade our lawmakers and our legislators. So it's like, wait a minute, how do we have a double standard for the citizens? Like, I want them all out, by the way. Like, I'm with you. Like, get the out-of-state lobbyists out. I had a conversation with one earlier this week. It's like, you don't even live in Idaho, right? Like, he lives on a West Coast state. It's like, what are you even doing here? Right? Yeah, moo, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm for getting rid of that. But what I think is interesting, it's like, okay, how come we're not going after the lobbyists? And like, I'm fine. You want to get rid of all money. How come we don't go after lobbyists too?
But you'll see that one of the bills that's dealing with this electoral reform deals with the lobbyists, right? Because right now what you're seeing with the flyers and stuff going out, they're lobbying, but they're saying they're not, right? So there's a bill to help rein that in some too. The problem's still the same though. You can't prevent them, right? Wish you could. We would, but we can't. So you got to deal with them. But no, you'll see the one of the bills does with lobbyists that you'll see in the next week or so.
Is there any result that came? So there is, and I know this isn't your bill, so don't, like, I'm not trying to pin you down on it.
Am I in trouble?
No. This is a genuine question. Obviously, is there a result from the ballot initiative process that was between? The ballot initiative revision bill, it's my understanding, requires enhanced signatures and then voting up to like 60%. 60% of the populace has to vote for it. Okay. Like, I don't have any opinion about that. What I'm trying to find out is there a result that came from a 50 to 60% affirmative that is really, really bad? Like, is there an instance where there was a ballot initiative, it got 55% yes, 45% no, and people are like, oh, that's a problem. We need, the 55% was too low. Like, we need to make it 60 because this is like a terrible law or something.
Not that I know of, but I haven't paid attention to the ballot initiative enough. There might be something out there, Matt, but I don't know. I
got it.
Out of my wheelhouse. Sorry.
No, listen, that's fine. I know you can't know everything.
Listen, half the states don't have ballot initiatives, right? It's a pure form of democracy. We live in a republic. The problem you have is that if you start allowing the masses to determine what's done in that building based on their personal wants and needs and not on what's best for Idaho, my concern is we could ruin the state of Idaho, right? And so, we'll see what happens. The courts have made it clear. It's in the Constitution. The ballot initiative is protected. We all support it as long as it's taken care of. On that issue, I just don't know.
Totally. Listen, again, this isn't even your bill. You just brought up Prop 1, and I've been meaning to ask somebody about
that Prop 1 thing is still, that was frustrating, right? They bring in all that out-of-state money. They do all that and again, they tell things that aren't true. And that, do you want initiatives all run like that? Do you want them all to be able to come in here and say things that aren't true? Do you want it all to come from out-of-state money like you're seeing with y'all and other groups? Do you want that? I don't think you do. They'll destroy the state.
You don't have to think. I can tell you right now, I don't.
Well, like, just making sure.
I think it's. I mean, this was our original conversation, which is like, look, I'm not even your constituent.
Nope.
I am.
I wish you were.
We'd have a great time.
We would.
I am for Idaho, and if you ever get voted out, it better be that there was an Idahoan that came forward that had something that meant something important to other Idahoans that somehow you missed. And I very much hope that if there was something like that, you would say like, hey, look, I hear you guys. But the point is, forget all the mailers, forget all that outside manipulation of the state of Idaho.
You don't want the out-of-state manipulation is a good word. You will destroy the state. One of the things I jokingly said at a thing the other day with some constituents, a little get together. I said, there's a proposed bill. There's not, but there's been talk about saying that you can't vote till you lived in Idaho 5 years, right? So you get to know the lay of the land and who the people really are, so you can't be skewed by this misinformation that's being spread out there. Now, we can't do that, and we won't do that, but the principle's the same. Don't break something that's not broken, right? It's working. Be happy you're here. You came here because of what we have. Don't screw it up.
Right. Man, I got to tell you something. I get an email this weekend.
Oh,
I get an email this weekend.
You're worried me. What kind of email was this, Matt? Now be careful.
Listen to me. I get an email from this person who's really exact same kind of thing, really worked up about something from her former state. And I understand why. I experienced the same kind of thing. But she wanted, and she's very much views herself as an activist now and really trying to articulate why, like how to save Idaho from this fate. And whether she's right or wrong, I have no idea. I don't know anything about how to make things work. Right. But what I do know is like, listen, there are things going on in the state. Like, it's not that this state doesn't see what's happening in Seattle. It's not that the state doesn't see, like, we have Twitter too. We have TikTok. We have like, well, not everywhere, but we have TikTok. We have social media. You can see San Francisco. We can see the same problems, and we can see the policies just like everyone else. You don't have to have lived there, and some of the legislature has, but you don't have to live there to say like, gee, I wonder why all the CVSs have locked up aspirin and Tylenol and you can't go anywhere without getting robbed. Like, we know very clearly why these policies don't work. So although I'm very sympathetic to people, because again, I was one of them that moved here and was very anxious, at the same time, it's like, hey, take a beat. You don't have to move here and think that the weight of the world is on your shoulders. And you got to tell everyone. It's like, maybe they already know.
Maybe they already know, and it ain't broken, right? We don't have those problems here for a reason. Idahoans look out after Idahoans. Idahoans don't put up with that kind of stuff, and they won't. That's why they come here. I think people that do some of those things you're talking about, for example, where the robbing and stealing and all that, you just don't see that here because if you saw it happen, Matt, you'd tackle them in the parking lot too. I mean, that's how it is in Idaho. They know it, right? And then they're afraid everybody's carrying because probably are. So my point,
they're probably right.
You're probably right. So my point, it's just the best. Just don't screw it up.
Question for you. Not screwing things up, but enhancing them. Okay. I've been talking to, I had Representative Jordan Redmond in yesterday, and he was chatting about come on now, apprentice program instead of a residency program for medical residencies, right? Because we don't have enough medical residencies in here. He's like, hey, listen, we got to figure something out. And the idea of enhancing or supplementing our existing physician base or our medical professional base, it's on everybody's mind. Like, we don't have enough nurses. We don't have enough OBs, especially in rural areas. What do we do that? We do have exchange programs with other states, but still, and we are increasing the number of residencies and whatnot in the state. That's great.
And we subsidize those some, so we're trying to incentivize that.
So what else can be done? And again, I know this is a long-term play. You're not going to snap your fingers, but what else can be done to keep helping with the medicine?
Well, you're seeing one of the bills that I'm running now that's got a lot of them. At first they were okay. Now the hospital's a little concerned. We're in a group called WWAMI, where we send kids to Utah to be taught to be doctors, and we subsidize them in the University of Washington, and then they come back to Idaho. They didn't used to, by the way. Some of them did, some of them didn't. And I'm trying to make it so that in a couple of years from now, we have those residencies that are currently, those not residencies, but those students that are currently going to Washington, that they go to Utah or an Idaho school. We've got ICOM here in Meridian. It's a DO, but what the heck? Those are good doctors, and we should be subsidizing Idaho kids going to an Idaho school, right? We should be subsidizing those kids just as much as we are others. Some of the medical schools, Washington being an example, they've gone so far woke and they don't deal with this very well that, the University of Idaho and others, we want out. We want those kids to come back to Idaho, but we want them in a place where they're going to come out with a good education and be good Idaho citizens living in Idaho. So you're going to see some stuff the next couple of years. You'll see that one bill. I don't know if it gets through this year. We'll see as we try to push those seats in WWAMI down to Utah, maybe into ICOM and other schools in the Northwest, and try to incentivize getting more of those students taught and back in Idaho teaching, and being doctors here in Idaho. But you have this friction, right? You have the friction between the hospitals. You have the friction between the schools. You have the friction between where I went to school, where you went to school. I mean, it's weird stuff when you deal with these doctors, but we need more of them here. And I think we can fix that working together. Redmond's been very involved with that. He knows what's going on there, and he's helpful. And you're seeing some other things. I think you'll see some more stuff the next 2 years as we try to incentivize that.
Yeah, the question about out of state, I mean, obviously, I just got the NAEP or something, National Academic Education Proficiency or something. Mm-hmm. Are you aware of the stats that we have?
We do good.
Dude, we don't do good. Like, we absolutely slate.
And we do it with less money than some of the others.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I just got this last night. I gotta read this. Okay. Idaho schools, as terrible as Idaho schools are, they're terrible, they're broken. Check this out. For the NAEP 2024 rankings, 4th grade reading, Idaho ranked 5th nationally. 8th grade reading, Idaho ranked 3rd. 4th grade math, Idaho ranked 4th nationally. That's out of everyone. Yep. And then 8th grade math, Idaho ranked 3rd. That's national standard proficiencies. That's what Idaho's doing with less money than every single person.
Exactly. We got good teachers, we got good families, and families that are involved with their children, and Idaho's doing it right. Contrary to all the garbage you hear about us, we are doing it right. That's another reason people are coming here, by the way, is because of the education of their children. I think you can relate to that a little bit.
I had a friend who went to the Middleton school. Yeah, first off, I can relate to that. Second, I had a friend who went to the Middleton school board meeting recently. I think it was even last night. And she was telling me all these teenagers rolled in. She's like, what the hell are the teenagers like? And like, they call for, public comment. And one person stands up and is like, we need batting cages. And he sits down. That's it, right? And she's like, what the hell? Halfway through the meeting, I think it was the board chair was like, all right, we're about to get into some procedural stuff. It's pretty boring. Teenagers, you can come forward and get signatures. And she's like, what the hell are the signatures? So it turns out that within the Middleton School District, the teenagers, as part of their government class, the students are required to go to one city council meeting and one school board meeting and experience the democracy and action. They experience local government, and they have to get it signed. So all these kids have to go and see, like, oh, they're taking votes, like they're taking roll, like there's a quorum or something. But again,
so what's wrong with that? Nothing. It's awesome.
God bless it. I heard that. I was just really encouraged. Like, God, man, that's how you make an informed and engaged populace.
Well, no, I mean, and listen, a lot of those decisions are made locally. Let's delve into taxes a little bit. Property tax decisions aren't made at the legislature. They're made at those locals in those local meetings. Nobody goes to them. Having those kids learn how to go to those city council meetings, go to those school board meetings will help them when they get older to go to those other meetings when they set budgets that deal with their property taxes or deal with their children at the school. It's a great deal.
Yeah. Talk to me about grocery tax. What do you say on grocery tax? I've talked to like 5 people about grocery tax, and now I'm just like, I don't even know what to think.
Listen, I'm one of the ones.
Listen to me.
I'm one of the ones that, whatever. One of the flyers was about that.
Maybe I shouldn't ask you. I'll just go read the flyer.
Yeah, go read the flyer.
Yeah. It says bottom line is we have a grocery tax. Idaho citizens can get a rebate up to roughly $11,000. Like, my family gets a rebate on that tax up to roughly $11,000 worth of groceries. It's the only tax that you can catch people here that are unauthorized, like illegal immigrants. You get tourists. You get all these other things that are buying groceries at Costco, Walmart, Target, and going on to live with their lives. They are not eligible to get a rebate. Yeah, maybe there are some Idaho citizens who are not getting the rebate. I actually told Representative Muggs, I was like, just make the rebate automatic. Like, stop making me check the box. And he's like, well, we'll work it out. But the point is, that's the nature of that bill, right?
No, yeah, you give it back to Idahoans. The best tax is one paid by somebody else. That's what happens with that, right? It's out-of-staters pay. I was with the city mayor of one of our local cities, and they were talking about, I used to be in favor of just taking off of food. I'm not now, because if you do, our stores go up like tenfold in the summer when all those visitors come. We should be collecting money from them while they're in here using our resources. And so I'm along the lines of increase the credit and get down to that point where that we give it back to Idaho citizens. But then again, you got to define food too. Nobody wants to talk about that. But do you know what the number one SNAP purchase product I'm told is?
Oh, isn't it Coca-Cola or something?
Soda, man. It's soda, 10% or something crazy like that. Should that be tax exempt?
Listen,
Are you hooked on Diet Coke? Or you want to confess something here?
Listen, I drink only black stuff, and I've been trying to cut that. I get so worked up with these interviews, I actually can't sleep. So like, I stopped drinking coffee after like 8 a.m.
You got me worried, man.
No, I get so because I do so many, I get fired. I got all these ideas rattling around my dumb head. It's like I can't handle it.
You're up at 3 in the morning.
No, I don't. Oh my god, I'd be like, hey, Mike. Yeah, no, I don't drink soda. And again, I think this is actually something that Redmond's coming back to talk about, because the question is, look, how are we spending money on things like sugary luxury items like Coca-Cola? And again, I'm not trying to judge people. I'm not trying to shame people, but like, we also don't subsidize alcohol, right? Like, what is there any nutritional value to, having Coca-Cola or Pepsi? Like, and if there is,
what about candy? Is candy food? It's one of the items that's there. In fact, the bill today was held in committee that would have taken candy and pop off the list for SNAP. And it's I don't know what's going to happen. Redmond's in the committee. I'll have to ask him later.
Wait, who brought that?
I think Redmond did. I think he brought I'm not positive, but I think he brought it to change it. But then you get into definitions of food. There's some states, I'm told, I got a big marshmallow and a little one. Which one's food and which one's...
Oh, my God.
Yeah, the big one's food. The little one's fishing bait. It's taxed. Who wants to go through all that stuff? Collect the tax, give what's left back to citizens. And I want you to think about this, too. If you really think that if we take sales tax off of food items, that the items will go down 6%, let me give you a clue. One, it's not everything in that store. And two, those stores know what you're willing to pay. That's why it's a different price in Eagle than it is in Meridian. It's why it's a different price in Napa than it is in name your other store, because they know, they do the studies, they know where your price point, where you're not willing to pay more. No offense to my friends in Eagle, they're willing to pay more for milk than maybe in Meridian, whatever. And the stores know that. They'll just raise the price. You'll never know. You'll never know it went up. It's a moneymaker for them. So in my opinion, continue to collect this tax, give it back to Idahoans. It ought to be enough to offset their taxes on their food. I get that. But remember, food is not candy. It's not pop. There's some of these things I think are food that aren't. Another thing that came up from a legislator the other day that I hadn't even thought about. He says, I'm wealthy. He says, your daughter buys hamburger when she goes to the store. I buy T-bones. He said, taking sales tax off of food probably helps me more than it does your daughter.
Wait, and he's pointing the picture of finger at you, saying, you, Mike Moyle, you buy T-bones?
Yeah. And we were, around laughing, whatever, we're making jokes, but I'd never thought of it that way, right? If you're on the lower end, you pay for, you're not buying the expensive cuts of meat.
If your groceries are only $7,000 a year versus $12,000 a year, you're paying less tax.
You're paying less tax. You're better off. My daughter was the same way.
So this is like the progressive tax system that everybody should want.
Yeah, my daughter was complaining. Well, sales tax, in my opinion, is the fairest tax. All it depends on what you buy. You buy the Mercedes, you pay more than you buy the whatever. My daughter, though, was one of the ones that was angry about this, said, you got to take it off, you got to take it off. I said, keep track. Here's a list of what's considered food right now. You keep track of it. Take the pop off, because there's no way that's going to pass the legislature. We're not going to tax-free pop and all candy. She came back and said, Dad, we do better with the rebate, with the tax credit than we do with taking sales tax off food. She said, I didn't believe it till I actually sat down and looked at it. Because you'll see people hand out, look at this receipt. I went to the store. Well, the shampoo doesn't count as food, right? The pop didn't count as food. The candy didn't count as food. The toothpaste didn't count as food. I think there's a perception that everything's tax exempt in the store, and it's not. Gotcha. So give back Idahoans the money. Let's get the illegals, the visitors, and all that other stuff. Let's get it high enough so everybody's okay. And I think that's a fair way to do it. You're a farmer. You've been a farmer for a long time. Yeah, tell me I'm crazy. I know. I farm between the houses, man. I know. Listen, I call you sometimes and you're like, I gotta like, no, get out of it. Yeah, listen, are you optimistic that there's going to be some type of resolution that both secures a consistent, reliable workforce for the Idaho farmer, as well as secures our borders appropriate as possible? Listen, there is. And right now, most Idaho farmers are bringing those guys in H-2A program, right? There's a way to do it now. There's one anomaly with the dairies that we're trying to work around. But no, the workforce is there. You just have to go through the legal process to do it. And that's what we need to make sure, that we go through the legal process to do it. So when those folks come in, they do their job, they do their work, and they go home, and everybody's cool. Their taxes are paid, they're taken care of, they're insured, and they go back to their country of origin. It's there now, except for that one anomaly with the dairies. And I think we can get there. And I know there's been talk on how to do that.
I had a Rick Narabout from the Dairymen, and he
Good
came
guy.
in, yeah, great. And he was like, listen, it is one area of ag that you don't need labor for a 6 or 7 growing season. You need labor
All year round.
365, 24/7 dealing with these big animals.
Yep. Yeah. The dairy's an anomaly, but I think there's a way to get there, right? And I think there's discussions are happening. There's a way to get there. We're all okay, I think, at least I am, legal immigration, and we're all good with that. The problem we have is what's going on or was going on under the Biden administration, where these guys are just rolling in here, running the place over, and then they're doing handouts, filling hotels with people that should be back somewhere else. But I think you're seeing those days come to an end. But there's a few little anomalies like the dairy that we need to have to figure out a path forward to, and we'll figure something out.
I can't remember who had mentioned it, and it may have even been off air, but somebody, one of the reps or senators had mentioned that there are funds in the state of Idaho outside of catastrophic emergencies that are going to people here that are not on visas, people here that are unauthorized or illegally here. Is that the case?
Don't know, but you're going to see some more stuff happen in health and welfare and other places to make sure you don't have that. There's been talk about that because in the past it's kind of been swept under the table, and the schools are an issue, and some of those other places, but we need to make sure that's not happening. And I know there's talk about doing that. Yeah. So, and that'll be easier to do when there's a mechanism to remove those folks that shouldn't be here that have done stuff. And you saw the bill the House kicked out yesterday. If they're committing crimes, they're out of here. In fact,
can you tell me about that? Because I did see that, but I didn't get the details.
The dairy support. Well, it's just if you get a misdemeanor, you're gone, right? We hold them go. Basically, that's at 1,000-foot level. But the dairies were supportive of that too, right? They don't want those here.
They're not looking for criminals.
And if you look what ICE is doing now, from what I'm told, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the bad guys, the ones that have done things they shouldn't do, and those are the first ones to go. And I think we all support that. We don't want the criminal base being here from those other countries. But Idaho will keep moving that way to find that fraud, and you'll see that happen. But it's a slow process. It's easier now that the federal government's with you. In the past, you could catch somebody as a criminal, they wouldn't take them, right? Under the Biden administration, they didn't want them, let them stay. But I think now you'll see that change.
E-Verify was one option that Representative Hill was talking about last year, and I don't know if he's bringing it back this year, but E-Verify was a mechanism by which the actual farmer, the employer, became like a mini immigration, analysis. And bottom line is that puts them in a really weird spot because as of right now, you're not even allowed to question whether or not the documentation is
You've got to hire them and then ask.
Right. So right now it's like, listen, it's not my role as somebody who's trying to grow whatever I'm trying to grow to be a mini immigration enforcement mechanism, right? Like the idea is that the federal government does this. So do you think that there's a way first off, do you think that E-Verify is going to come back and
there's several bills that I've seen on E-Verify to try to do that. And I'm supportive of it as long as it's done in the right way. The concern is, listen, most ag guys in Idaho don't have a problem with that because they are bringing them in H2A, H2B, or they're legal citizens. Sure. The problem is that one sector, especially the dairy. And so those that I've seen on E-Verify started later to give us time to see what the Trump administration is going to do. And I think that's helpful. Mm-hmm. In the past, even without E-Verify, I'm told if you had somebody whose social security number didn't match the name, they would call you, but it usually came after the fact, right? A year later, you get a letter saying, hey, that individual, that doesn't match. But by then they're, gone. But I think you'll see in E-Verify, I think you'll see some kind of mechanism within that to help our friends that need to see that the federal government gives them a way to get somebody to milk their cows, for example.
Gotcha. Last one, because again, I know it's the end of the day. I really appreciate you.
End of the day, heck, man. What is it? It's not end of the day. End of the day is like midnight, dude. Come on, Matt. You know better than that.
I know. I know you're burning hot. I don't want to take all your time. Medicaid expansion. This is one that I was actually going to have. I was going to have Representative Tanner in after you. He had got caught in committee. We're getting lined back up, but a lot of people are getting worked up over Medicaid expansion. Then, he in particular was like, listen, I don't have a problem with Medicaid expansion as long as there's a work requirement attached to it. He was like, this is for able-bodied people. It's not for disabled. It's not for pregnant. It's not for elderly. It's not for children. It's for able-bodied people who can go out and work. And there was a donut-shaped hole for those people. And we just need to verify, again, his position is we just need to verify that we have this requirement. They can't get it unless they're trying to work, go to school, or volunteer.
See, I'm not a big fan of Medicaid expansion, and we were sold it was going to cost $40 million. Now it's $100 and some million. We were sold it was going to lower taxes. It hasn't lowered taxes; it's raised them. We were sold a bill of goods, and by the way, that was another initiative that legislature hadn't let that pass. That was an initiative, and it was supported by the people overwhelmingly. I get that, but I don't think that everybody realized what they bought. So now we sit in a situation where we've got Medicaid expansion, and we're trying to get the waivers to make sure they're working. We need to get the waivers. One waiver that I'd like to see is it's cheaper to put them back on the insurance exchange and buy them regular insurance than it is to keep them on Medicaid. So why aren't we doing that? Well, because we got to get a waiver. So I think you'll see some proposals to try to neck that in. I'm hoping the current administration will help us get the waiver. Remember, the old administration was trying to force us to take illegal aliens and others and put them on Medicaid. So hopefully going forward, we can get the waivers we need, because I would love to see some of these individuals, especially the ones caught in that donut hole, as you call it, put them on the exchange, buy them regular health insurance. In fact, if Idaho hadn't have done the Medicaid expansion, Idaho citizens would have a silver plan right now and be in the private insurance sector, and it would save you hundreds of millions of dollars. So I'd like to see if we can get the waiver from the new president's the Trump administration, and see if we can put some of those folks back onto health insurance. Some of them don't want to be off of their insurance and were forced off of insurance and on Medicaid because of the rules. So there's some things that need to be done there. And I know that Vandewalle and Redmond are working hard on that. And hopefully we can get some waivers and move it in the right direction to get those folks either in regular insurance, which is better for all of us, or at least get them where there's work requirements and other stuff so that they're being, working citizens, and that, this cost can go down somehow.
You'll have to excuse me here. When you're talking about the waiver, what is the waiver mechanism? What are you talking about?
Well, you got to go to the federal government and say, for example, we think that people within this income range ought to be on the exchange, not on Medicaid.
So you have to go like category by category.
Well, we could do categories, but basically what you do is you go to the federal government and say, we want to do this with our Medicaid, and which, for example, on that waiver, you'd say, we would like to put some people back on the health insurance exchange. Will you give us permission to use Medicaid money that's going for Medicaid now to pay for insurance policies and move some of those folks over, and here are the criteria. That's just an example of
Got whatever. But you have to essentially have to apply.
Yeah, you got to go with Mother May and put your hands out. Medicaid expansion won't go away in Idaho. There's a lot of people say, well, because there's a bill introduced, I think Vandewalle brought, I'm not sure which one, to do away with Medicaid expansion. If you were to pass that bill, you still have to go to the federal government with your hand out and say, Mother May I? And they have 18 months to tell you whether or not they're going to let you out. They own you. So Medicaid expansion, I believe, is here to stay. So if that's what the world we got to live in, let's do the things we can to get the costs under control and to get some of these folks back on the insurance plans, to lower your rates, to, move things around and do the things that will save us money on Medicaid. And those are what those waivers were
essentially. Gotcha. Listen. We've just talked about like half a dozen things.
Whatever.
Is there?
We're going to get to the good stuff.
Hit me with the good stuff.
I want to talk about taxes, man.
Hit me with taxes.
You know me, man. That's my forte. That's the only reason I do this stuff.
God bless it. So you're, again, almost $400 million back to Idaho.
450 is what I want to get back.
450. Talk to me about this.
Governor offered $100 million. I think we can do 450. You see three of the bills out there. One of them's right at $250 million, 253 for income tax reduction. It takes our military folks that come here, if they keep a job, will exempt their military retirement from income tax. It's a good bill. Does away with the capital gains on gold and silver. Nobody's paying it anyways, by the way. The other bill deals with the expanding or increasing, the credit for your grocery. They call it a grocery tax. It's a food credit in the statute. Increasing the food credit, whatever. We all call it grocery. But
give it another $50 million there.
Yeah, moving up there to $155 for every man, woman, and child. That includes a day-old child. They get it. And then the other one deals with property tax. And right now the property tax bill is about $100 million. It is $100 million. We're looking at making that more and doing some expansion there. The property tax is hard, though, because the legislature doesn't collect, we don't spend it. Those are all local decisions. Since what I said about those kids going to those meetings, they need to know that those decisions are made, show up, because nobody shows up to them. But there's some things we can do there to help do some more in regards to our education, dumping more money for bonds, supplementals, and buildings, and providing property tax at the same time, and some things we could do there for our homeowners. So you're going to see some more work on the property. I think the other two are okay the way they are. The property tax one, I think we can do more, and we're in discussions to try to push that farther out and get more tax relief from the property tax side.
we're giving back forfeit. Didn't we bond like $1 billion to help with this? This was a criticism that somebody brought. They're like, why are we giving this money back here and then borrowing this money to fund ourselves over here? Why not just decrease our bonding and then use that money to go out to Idaho?
Well, that's kind of what we did with the bill last year, right? We bonded for that money to give to the school districts to pay for their safety issues with their buildings and to lower your property taxes and to do all that. And the bond is paid back with the increase on the sales tax. So we took that money and said the need is now, right? So here's the mechanism to give all the school districts a lot of money to give you property tax relief. You saw it on your thing. You'll see it again this year. It'll go up again this year because it grows as the sales tax grows. And our whole plan was to try to get that money going now to make sure those school issues were
because they had needs now.
Yeah, needs are now. Yeah. And you saw how well our students are doing. You just read that a minute ago on our thing. But we need them to be in safe buildings, not with the roofs aren't leaking and falling in and all that other stuff. And we have some schools that need some help. So that was why we did it. And we gave the school districts options. They can take a one lump sum or we'll give it to them over 10 years on that portion. The other portion deals with the property tax relief, and we dump money in that every year. And one of the proposals this year dumps more money in that for more property tax relief, but also if they choose to pay down their bonds. Remember, all the school district bonds and supplementals, that's debt to pay it off. So a combination of both. It accomplishes what their concern was on the bonding.
Got it. You do like reducing taxes. God bless you, sir.
Hey, it's the only reason I ran. I told you that. I mean, the day I leave, I am blessed. I've cut more tax in my history. Go look it up. It's the only reason I ran. When I ran, Idaho's income tax were 8.2%.
That was 98.
Long time ago. Yep.
Well, look, man, you're doing a lot.
Yeah, it's fun.
You're doing a lot. God bless it.
Cows are going to start calving here in a month, man. We got to get this done.
Listen, get out of here then. Thank you for coming. Thanks for what you're doing for Idaho. Let's do it.
Appreciate it. It's good seeing you.
You too.